Gilded Age eccentric millionaire who was like the great-great-grandson. He was an Astor, in New York. So he had all this money. And it was a man who very likely had a mental illness. I mean, he heard voices, right? Except he was convinced that these voices were actually a lucrative asset. They were like some kind of mental technology that would allow him to have a certain kind of oracular or prophetic connection to business markets. And I described how he ran these tests on himself, like the voices. He called the voices the X faculty. Or I like that it's like it is 1892, and I love that it's like the X factor, right? The X faculty is what he calls it. It's a shocking case study because of how it's reminiscent, but in advance of things that you just read and you're like, wait, this seems like now. But anyway, one of the early experiments of the X faculty that he did with the X faculty is the X faculty told him to go into the city and essentially bet on a particular stock and that it would go up. And he like made money off of it. And he's like, no, it's real. This is, and he tried to patent it. He tried to patent his X faculty. It's a kind of remarkable. This is all happening before economic theorists are talking about entrepreneurs as these irrational, demonic, Napoleonic figures. This gentleman who I talk about, his name was John Chandler, but he changed his name because it was a more oracular version he had in mind or whatever. Anyway, he thought he was the reincarnation of Napoleon. I mean, there's all these like echoes that are quite remarkable. But what's interesting is another thing I argue is that it had a lot. The fact that he was incredibly wealthy from birth and white and highly educated, living at turn of the century America, gave him the entitlement to imagine that his oddities were actually financial assets, which is not something we all have access to. So this confluence between the entrepreneurial and the pathological privileges that underwrite it. He is a kind of entrepreneur par excellence, right? And what's funny is actually, I mean, one of the things that he invested in was he invested in Southern textiles in the 1890s. He was a New Yorker, but he invested. And there's a whole story. His family was really upset with him. They had him committed. He wasn't actually able to profit off of his textiles, but the thing is, they were profitable. If they had let him do it, he would have made a ton of money. He was actually one of the founders of the city of Roanoke Rapids in North Carolina. It's like, what's crazy is he wasn't wrong, which is like so shocking.